The summons landed on Michael Agzarian's doormat in Wagga Wagga, a regional New South Wales city just before Christmas. It wasn't a speeding fine or a notice about overdue rates. This was a criminal charge displaying Nazi symbols by a public act without lawful excuse. For an artist, a creator whose work was designed to provoke thought, to challenge, to satirize, this wasn't just an accusation, it was an existential threat. It meant a court date in Sydney, the possibility of a criminal record, and the chilling prospect that his artistic expression could be deemed an offence in a country that prides itself on freedom of speech. The weight of it pressed down, threatening to crush not just his reputation but the very essence of what he believed art should be. How could a series of images created with the explicit intention of political commentary land him in such profound legal trouble? Against the backdrop of laws specifically designed to combat hate speech, Michael Agzarian was a fixture in Wagga Wagga, a well-respected graphic designer and artist whose work often held a mirror up to society, reflecting its absurdities and injustices with a sharp, often humorous edge. He was in his 50s, a family man and someone who believed passionately in the power of public discourse. Wagga Wagga itself, nestled on the Murrumbidgee River, is a place where community matters, where local issues resonate deeply, and where the values of a fair go and speaking your mind are truly held. Michael had a studio in the town centre, a vibrant creative hub where ideas were debated as often as they were realized. His art wasn't for everyone. It was designed to be provocative, to stir conversation, but always in his view within the bounds of legitimate political expression. He'd never shied away from controversy, seeing it as an inevitable and often necessary part of his craft. He knew his local community, and they for the most part knew him and understood his artistic intent, even when they didn't always agree with the specific message. This wasn't some anonymous internet troll, this was a professional artist, a neighbor creating work that was meant to be seen and discussed. His life before this all began was dedicated to his art, his design business and his family, punctuated by the regular rhythm of regional Australian life. He'd built a reputation over decades, a reputation now suddenly at risk of being tarnished by a single charge that felt utterly alien to his character and his artistic principles. The incident that sparked this extraordinary legal battle began with Michael's artistic response to what he perceived as authoritarian tendencies and overreach in Australian politics and media during the pandemic years. He created a series of images, digital collages depicting several high-profile Australians, politicians, media figures and even a chief medical officer, in military-style uniforms. The critical and ultimately controversial element was the inclusion of Nazi symbols, specifically swastikas, on these uniforms. His intent, as he would later explain, was clear: to use shocking imagery to highlight what he saw as a dangerous erosion of civil liberties and democratic principles. He believed these figures were exhibiting behavior that to him mirrored historical authoritarian regimes, and he used the universally condemned symbol of Nazism as a stark visual shorthand for that perceived threat. He exhibited these images in his studio window in Wagga Wagga, a public-facing display, for a period of about 2 weeks in early 2023. This wasn't hidden, it was a deliberate public statement, an open invitation for discussion or indeed for outrage. The images were undeniably confronting, designed to shock the viewer into contemplating their underlying message. They were not, in Michael's mind, an endorsement of Nazi ideology but a powerful, albeit extreme, critique of contemporary Australian power. But the law, particularly recent laws introduced in New South Wales, viewed the display of Nazi symbols with grave seriousness, and for good reason. The New South Wales Crimes Act had recently been amended to prohibit the public display of Nazi symbols, with a few narrow exceptions, including for artistic or educational purposes. The question at the heart of the ensuing legal drama was whether Michael's work fell within that vital exemption or whether it crossed a line into a criminal offence. It was a question that would test the boundaries of artistic freedom and the application of a law designed to protect communities from genuine hate speech. The police action against Michael began not long after the images were displayed following complaints. Officers from the Wagga Wagga police station launched an investigation. What's remarkable about the early stages of this case, as later revealed in court, was that the police themselves had internal legal advice suggesting that Michael's images likely constituted political satire. This advice, presumably from within the New South Wales Police Force's own legal services, recognized the artistic intent behind the work and its probable alignment with the artistic purpose exemption in the legislation. Yet despite this internal counsel, Michael Agzarian was charged. The specific offence was under Section 93Z of the Crimes Act 1900 New South Wales, which makes it an offence to display a Nazi symbol by a public act without lawful excuse. The maximum penalty for this offence includes a significant fine or imprisonment. Michael understandably refused to plead guilty. He believed passionately that his work was legitimate political commentary, a vital part of democratic discourse, and he was prepared to fight to defend that principle. The case was listed for hearing at the Downing Centre Local Court in Sydney, a significant journey from his home in Wagga Wagga. His defence team would argue that his artistic expression fell squarely within the exemption provisions of the Act, which specifically allow for the display of Nazi symbols for legitimate academic, artistic, or educational purposes, or in good faith for public interest matters. They would contend that to criminalize such satire would be a chilling blow to freedom of speech, and an absurd misapplication of a law designed to prevent the glorification of Nazism, not to stifle critical artistic commentary. The stakes were incredibly high for Michael, but also for the broader Australian community and the future of artistic freedom. Could the state genuinely prosecute an artist for what was clearly to many a satirical critique? Even if controversial, the resolution of Michael Agzarian's case came just under a year after he was initially charged on a Friday morning at the Downing Centre Local Court in Sydney. The police, after months of legal wrangling and facing a determined defence, formally dropped the case against him. It was a victory undeniably for Michael and for artistic freedom in Australia, but it came at a significant personal cost. The decision to drop the charges meant that the specific legal arguments around the artistic exemption under the Crimes Act 1900 New South Wales weren't fully tested in court with a final judicial ruling. However, the outcome strongly implied that the prosecution had come to realize the profound difficulties they would face in proving that Michael's work did not fall under the artistic purpose exemption. The revelation during the proceedings that internal police legal advice had from the outset characterized the images as political satire added another layer to the outcome, suggesting that the initial decision to charge might have been an overreach, or perhaps driven by public pressure rather than a robust legal assessment. While no specific monetary compensation was awarded as part of the police dropping the charges, the psychological and financial toll on Michael would have been considerable. covering legal fees, travel and the immense stress of facing a criminal charge. He walked out of court a free man, his artistic license reaffirmed, but the shadow of the year-long battle would undoubtedly remain. Was justice served? In the sense that he was not convicted of a crime he believed he hadn't committed, yes. But the fact that it went this far despite internal advice highlights a concerning tension between the application of new laws and the long-held Australian value of a fair go for expressing dissenting opinions, particularly through art. This case, while ending without a conviction, carries profound implications for everyday Australians, particularly those involved in creative pursuits, or anyone who believes in robust public discourse. What Michael Aghazarian's experience demonstrates is the critical importance